Why is it so easy for me to return to the same things that once broke me? Perhaps you have asked yourself that same question. You fought so hard to break free, maybe a habit, a person, or a mindset. You promised yourself, never again. You block their number, you delete the app, you say to yourself, this time you are done. And one small moment later, you're right back into the same life that you wanted to leave. Same road, same feeling, same version of you that you swore you had left behind. And it messes with your mind. You start to ask yourself, am I really changing? Or am I just running in laps? That is one of the hardest parts. Not just that you fell back, but you start to question all your progress up until now. You start to question yourself, like maybe you're lying to yourself the whole time. Consider this scenario. You convince yourself that this time I won't reply. You're resolute and certain. And then they are nice for 2 seconds, maybe they compliment you, maybe they find out how you are, and suddenly you are reeled in yet again. Or it's not a person at all, maybe it's a behavior. You delete the app, you restart clean, and then with no awareness, your thumb opens it again, like it's programmed into a neuromuscular memory. Or you re establish a boundary, you feel strong for a while, and then you are the one who opens the door. You feel betrayed, not by them but by you, because you betrayed yourself, and that disappointment hurts more than anything they could do to you. I have been there. I'm not speaking from a distance like some guy analyzing others' mistakes. I have been there, and I can still find myself in those same moments sometimes. Let me tell you about one of those. There was a girl I liked a long time ago. She was my first real crush, and we talked and laughed and stayed up texting late into the night. She was nice to me in a way that felt different. I thought maybe, just maybe, the feelings were mutual. Eventually, I found the courage to ask her out. And guess what? She ghosted me, just like that. Disappeared. No explanation, no goodbye, just quiet. And then, months later, I was still thinking about her. I was still running tiny little moments through my brain like they meant something. Her smile, her laughing, how she was. And I hated myself for it. I hated that I was holding on to someone who had me let go so easily. It felt weak. It felt pathetic. Like, why can't I just move the hell on? You might have heard the phrase, that which fires together wires together. When you think a thought enough times, those same neurons in your brain will continue firing together. And over time, the thought becomes stronger. It's similar to a tractor driving down the same road, day in and day out, until the dirt is groomed. Eventually, the tractor is so accustomed it doesn't even need to steer. Its tires simply fall into the grooves. This is how thought spirals work. You know the kind, I messed up X, so I'm going to fail at Y. And if that is the case, that is not possible. And before you know it, you're caught in the spiral. And you feel your mood plummeting. And sometimes it feels like the whole universe is against you. And if you're driven down the road enough times, your brain will go back to it in a default capacity. The grooves are already established. So you begin to make changes. Initially, it's like trying to wrestle a tractor out of the rut. You pull on the steering wheel, you go on against the grooves, and sometimes you win. You make the turn, and now you're on a different track. Maybe for a while, but some days, no matter how hard you fight it, the tires fall back into the old rut. And when that happens, it doesn't mean you are broken. It doesn't mean you are weak. It just means the other ruts are still there, and they are not weak. I see this in my family too. My dad drinks. And every time I say to him, why wouldn't you want to stop drinking? He says the same thing. You don't know how much stress I'm under. That's his coping mechanism. He knows it is not good for him. He knows it is damaging his health, his relationships, and yet that's where he is comfortable. Stress plus habit equals comfort, and comfort yells louder than reason when the weight of life gets heavy. Or perhaps alcohol isn't your poison. Think about your own life. Maybe it's the person you let off the hook before they even say, I'm sorry. Maybe it's the endless scrolling on your phone until 3 a.m. Maybe it's letting the same thinking loop beat you up over and over. The faces may change, but the system remains. And then the shame that comes after you slip. That is what can break a person. I remember distinctly staring at myself in the mirror, feeling like I had so much disappointment in me. I could feel my chest caving in, saying to myself out loud, why am I like this? And in that moment, one mistake felt larger than all the efforts I exerted over the previous months. That's how the mind tallies, loud when we lose and soft when we win. But I learned you can count differently. I have utilized dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, and one of the first things it teaches is we are all doing our best and we need to do more to do better. Both statements can be true at the same time. It means you can forgive yourself for a lapse and still take accountability and push yourself to do better. You can validate what you have done and still take responsibility. It does not have to be a black or white dichotomy. That was a game changer for me because for so long, every lapse felt like a catastrophe. Now I simply consider it as a part of process. Progress is not always linear. It's not as smooth as you think. It can be messy. And even if it looks like 2 steps forward and 1 step back, I would say the other tool that has been helpful for me is mindfulness. I have been training myself when I notice the old thought again, not to just dive into it, but instead to notice that I noticed. I call it out, oh, there is that thought. You always mess this up. For instance, by noticing that I'm noting this thought just like something I'm hearing in a room, sometimes it just fades away. Not every time, not perfectly, but again, enough to remind that I am not my thoughts. I am the one hearing the thoughts. That is a powerful shift. Even a second of clarity is progress, a second of clarity where you choose not to spiral into the chaos. And then that second become 2. Then 2 seconds into a minute of clarity. Then, in your chosen moment of clarity, thinking of something new becomes a habit. And that is how new tracks are created. That is how new tracks are laid down. And speaking of tracks, let's go back to the tractor image. You must have seen those motivational edits on Instagram where they show motivation versus consistency. Motivation is all over the place and consistency is the smooth, clean staircase climbing upward. It looks nice, right? But obviously it's fake. Real consistency is not that smooth, it's ugly. It's like climbing, slipping, stopping and climbing again. It's falling into the old grooves and pulling yourself out. That's why it's real. Because life is messy and so is progress. So, I do have this practical step. You can write down the new thought you want to practice. When you slip back into the old spiral, I'm failed, I'm hopeless, don't argue with it. Just read the note you already prepared. I slipped, but I learned something. I'm still further than I was last year. Next step, maybe go outside, text a friend. What I want to say is redirect instead of debating. Each time you do that, you are carving a new grove. Let's get into the concept of identity, because this is where it can feel most real. When a slip happens, it can feel like a judgment, an internal message to yourself that reads something like, I guess I'm just this kind of person. I guess I'll never change. That's simply not true. A slip is one moment, not an identity. The fact that it hurts is evidence that you care, because those who care are the ones who change. The guilt you feel is not the enemy, it is the evidence and proof that you desire better. Think of it as a personal compass pointing you back to the road you intended to take. So, stop telling yourself that you are back at zero. You are not at zero, you are starting with experience. And experience matters. You know your triggers now, you know what time of day you are most vulnerable, you know how an incoming text or a thought knocks you down. That is experience you did not have. This is not failure, this is data. And if you would like, you can think of the tractor again next time. The ruts were deep, the tires wanted to fall in, your hands were on the wheel. There was resistance for sure, but you turned anyway. Even if today you just held the line for a few feet, there's still a few feet of new ground you just covered. Do it again tomorrow, and again the next day, and eventually, the new road will feel easier than the old one. I still think of that girl from time to time, but far less now. When it comes to mind, I acknowledge the memory, then I move on. Not because I'm cold, not because I'm ass, but because I'm busy. I'm establishing a life I'm not even sure I could handle. And that's the silent victory, the things no one recognizes. The mornings you don't reach for the old thing, the night you leave your phone in another room, those texts you don't send. Those things also count as victories. That's still progress. This might be what you need to hear more than anything. You aren't behind just because you slipped. You're human because you care. You don't have to be perfect for anyone. You only have to be honest with yourself. If today the best you can do is hold your ground, that's good enough. If tomorrow you can take one step, take it. And if you fall, just get back up. Not because you need to impress anyone, but because you promised yourself a life you can respect. I'm not quitting, that's just not me. And I don't think it's you either. As long as we are alive, there is room for staring again. As long as we are aware of what is going on in our heads, there is possibility of wiring something new. 1 second of awareness becomes two. Two becomes a minute becomes a habit, and a habit becomes a different day. Therefore, the next time you feel the pull of the old path, be aware of that pull. Name it. Change directions. And if you find yourself slipping back for a while, change directions again. Because this is not the end, it's an opportunity to travel towards where you wanted to go. Not perfectly, not smooth, just forward.